Hello, welcome to Medicine Classes for Dummies. Today we will discuss a topic that is thyroid storm. We will discuss how we will manage a case of thyroid storm in emergency. This thyroid storm is common among females who are suffering from Graves' disease, and its incidence is 2% in females and 0.2% in males. What are the most common causes of thyroid storm? Are first most common cause is Graves' disease, followed by toxic nodular goiter. What are the precipitating events? There are some precipitating events for thyroid storm. The most common being an underlying infection, or it can be an underlying MI, trauma, diabetic ketoacidosis, pregnancy, and parturition. These are all precipitating factors. So previously there used to be a lot of cases of thyroid storm because following patients who undergo thyroidectomy because of the poor preoperative preparation. But these days the incidence of thyroid storm has come down intraoperatively as well as postoperatively because of the better preparation of the surgical patients. So in addition to these infections and trauma and all cause precipitating thyroid storm, there are other causes as well as we used to learn in our surgery classes, like that, this Jod-Basidos phenomenon, in which if a person or a patient receives, like a patient who is suffering from thyroid toxicosis, like a person suffering from Graves' disease receive large amount of iodinated contrast, or he is receiving amiodarone. This patient is receiving large amount of exogenous iodine, and so all these iodine will be incorporated into the thyroid gland, and that will increases thyroid hormone production. That can also, this is the underlying phenomenon behind the Jod-Basidos phenomenon. That is the underlying principle behind Jod-Basidos phenomenon, and it can result in precipitation of a thyroid storm. Or if the patient is on thyroid toxicosis, biochemically confirmed, and was taking anti-thyroid medication, and he abruptly stopped all the medication, and also that can also result in a thyroid storm. Also, thyroid storm can occur in patients who are receiving other medications like interferon alpha, interleukin 2 for cancers or any infections, and such drugs can precipitate a thyroid storm. So what are the clinical features? So there is a scale, that is Busch-Wartowski scale, which help us in diagnosing thyroid storm. So in that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parameters are there. That is, one is temperature, heart rate, congestive cardiac failure, CNS symptoms, GI or hepatic dysfunction, and a precipitating history. So in this Busch-Wartowski scale, we take into consideration all these 6 factors, and in each of the parameters there are further subheadings, and when considering all this, we put a total score, and if the Busch-Wartowski score is more than 45, that means that patient it is a confirmed thyroid storm. If it is a score is between 25 and 45, that means it is a suspected thyroid storm, and if it is less than 25, it is unlikely to be a thyroid storm. So what are the parameters in each? So the temperature, if the temperature is more than 104, that will add to the score of 30. If it is between 103 to 103.9, it is 25. 102 to 103, it is 20. 101 to 101.9, it is 15. 100 to 100.9, it is 10. And 99 to 99.9, the score will be 5. And for the heart rate, we start the heart rate scoring from 99 to 109, it is 5. 110 to 120, 10. 120 to 130, 15. 130 to 139, 20. More than 140, the score will be 25. So if a patient comes with a temperature more than 104 degree, that is, the score has come to 30. And if his heart rate is more than 140, then the score has already reached 55. That means the patient is a confirmed thyroid storm. Or if the patient is having, the patient has presented with an atrial fibrillation, then the score adding in the heart rate, it will be 10. So in a congestive cardiac failure, the patient has presented with the pedal edema. If the patient presented with pedal edema, the score is 5. But if the patient on auscultation, there are crepitations or bibasal crepitations also, then the score is 10. And if there is severe pulmonary edema, then the total score added will be 15. So for the CNS symptoms, if the patient presented with frank seizure, then the total score adding will be 30. Or if the patient is presenting only with mild agitation, then it is only 10. And if it is like delirium, psychosis or lethargy, then the score will be 20. And for the GI and hepatic dysfunction, if the patient is presenting with the diarrhea, nausea, vomiting and abdominal pain only, then the score is only 10. Or if it is a severe unexplained jaundice, so this thyroid storm can present as a severe unexplained jaundice, then the score is 20. So then we will ask whether there is any precipitating history. Was there any history of any infection, trauma, MI? If there is a precipitating history, the score will be 0. While if the precipitating history is negative and still the patient has a thyroid storm, then we add 10 points to that. So this is how we clinically we grade thyroid storm, and we are using the parameters of heart rate, temperature, CNS, GI symptoms and also precipitating history. So we have classified the patient, we have confirmed that the patient is having a thyroid storm in a biochemically confirmed thyrotoxic patient. So immediately on receiving the patient, just like all other patient, we will assess the airway, breathing, circulation, disability. Then we will secure a wide bore cannula. Then we will take blood and send the basic investigations. So in a thyrotoxic patient, we will send TSH, T4, T3, urine routine, complete full blood count, LFT, calcium, random blood sugar and the serum electrolytes. And also we have to carry out a septic screen in that patients to find out whether there is any precipitating events. So that includes a chest X-ray, ECG, blood and urine cultures has to be sent. Then we have to inform the ICU team and we have to immediately give the supportive care. What are the supportive care we will give to the patient? That is, we should initiate cooling as early as possible. Maybe the patient will be coming at a temperature of 104 degree. So we have to give artificial cooling pads, ice packs has to be provided. Then we have to start an antibiotic for the patient. We should start a paracetamol infusion to bring down the temperature. We should avoid salicylates like aspirin to bring down the temperature, because these salicylates will bind to the thyroid binding globulin and make more thyroxine hormone, more thyroid hormones free. So we should avoid salicylates. Then we should correct the dyselectrolemia, because maybe patient must have presented with severe nausea and vomiting and maybe presenting with a hypokalemia. So we have to correct the electrolytes. We have to give nutritional support to the patient. We have to add thiamine in the fluid. We have to see whether there is any tachyarrhythmias and causing hemodynamic instability. Then we should immediately defibrillate the patient. The patient may be, because of the severe CNS symptoms, patient may be in severe agitation. So in that case, we can give give the patient a dose of chlorpromazine 50 to 100 milligram per oral or IM every 6 hourly. And also this patient's GRBS needs to be monitored every 4th hourly, because of the thyroid hypermetabolic state going inside the body. The liver glycogen stores will be depleted, and so the patient can go in hypoglycemia. So hence the GRBS needs to be monitored every 4th hourly. So now we will see what are the specific drugs and how will you now we will discuss how we will treat a patient with a thyroid storm. So the treatment part can be divided into, we have already initiated the cooling measures, have started antipyretics, that are all parts of treatment only. But now we will see how we will deal with the thyroid specific treatment. So the treatment part can be divided into the acute treatment part and also followed by maintenance therapy following resolution of the thyroid storm. So the acute therapy, we can, to remember it easily, we can say it as 5 B's. So 5B, what are the 5 B's? First is block the synthesis of the thyroid hormone. Second is block the release of the thyroid hormone. Third is beta blockers. Fourth is block the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. And fifth is blocking the enterohepatic circulation. So even though I have written in this order, first and foremost thing to be initiated is beta blockers. That should be the first treatment that we should give to the patient. That is, it will help in making a hemodynamically unstable patient with a tachycardia or AF into a stable heart rhythm, and also it will block the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. So for that, we will start a patient on IV propranolol 1 to 2 milligram per minute, which will be repeated every 15 minutes till a hemodynamic stability is attained. So maximum dose we can give is 10 milligram. And once the hemodynamic stability is attained, we can start oral propranolol at a dose of 40 to 80 milligram every 4 to 6 hourly. So, but we should be careful in those patients who are in heart failure. And in that case, we can use a short-acting beta blocker, that is ultra short-acting beta blocker, and which is cardio-specific, also like esmolol. We have to give at a dose of 50 mics per kg per minute. So even if we are giving beta blockers, we should be careful in those patients who are having bronchial asthma and COPD. So in such patients, we can go for a calcium channel blocker dilithiazem, 60 to 90 milligram per oral every 6 hourly to 8 hourly. In such patients also we can give a short acting esmolol can be given to bring a hemodynamic stability, followed by a calcium channel blocker. So that is the first treatment that should be started. Followed by we should block the synthesis. Then only we should block the release. We should not give release. We should not block the release and then block the synthesis, because at that time more and more hormone synthesis will be occurring inside the gland, and we will be just overloading the gland with hormone without allowing it to release. So first we have to block the synthesis. How will we block the synthesis of the thyroid hormone? So for that we use drugs like carbimazole and propylthiouracil. So these are thyroid peroxidase enzyme inhibitors. So this thyroid peroxidase enzyme is involved in the iodination of tyrosine residues, which are involved in T3 and T4 synthesis. So this iodination is done by this TPO enzyme. So this enzyme is inhibited. So the drugs we can give are propylthiouracil and carbimazole. Carbimazole we give at a dose of 20 to 30 milligram per oral, and it can be repeated every 4 to 6 hourly. So if you propylthiouracil is also given, but its use is restricted these days because of the risk of the fatal liver necrosis, but it is showing variable results in different studies. So we can also start if we want a rapid onset of action, and also to that, in addition to carbimazole, it will inhibit the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. So propylthiouracil can also be given. If we are giving propylthiouracil, we have to give first a loading dose of 600 milligram, followed by 200 to 250 milligram every 6th hourly, and we can put an oral or an nasogastric tube, or we can give these drugs rectally also. So we have blocked the synthesis of the thyroid hormone. Now we will go into the inhibition of hormone release. So after 1 hour of blocking synthesis, we have to start the release inhibitors. So this is based on the principle of Wolff-Chaikoff effect. What is Wolff-Chaikoff effect? That is, if we give a large amount of iodine, this iodine itself will inhibit the thyroid hormone release. So that is why we give a potassium iodide saturated solution. That is, usually we give 5 drops per orally every 6 to 8 hourly. So each drop is around 50 milligrams. So 5 drops will come around 250 milligram of iodine is given. Or other than potassium iodide, we can give it Lugol's iodine 5 to 10 drops, that is almost 1 ml every 6 to 8 hourly we will give. Or we can give a iodinated contrast material like hypanoic acid, which can be given as an infusion 1 gram IV every 8th hourly. So this is how we inhibit the release of the thyroid hormone from the thyroid gland. So we have first made the patient hemodynamically stable. We have inhibited the synthesis, and now we have inhibited the release. So now our aim is to prevent the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. We all know T3 is the active form which is being released and which is responsible for all the hemodynamic effects of the thyroid storm. So the fourth aim is to block the T4 to T3 conversion. For that, we have already discussed this propranolol as well as the propylthiouracil has effect on blocking peripheral conversion. In addition, we can give IV hydrocortisone 100 milligram every 6 hourly IV or IM till the storm resolves, or we can also give IV dexamethasone 2 milligram every 6 hourly till the storm resolves. Also, we can prevent the enterohepatic circulation of the thyroxine hormone, and for that we can give bile acid binders like cholestyramine can also be given. So this is how we manage thyroid storm in the acute setting. These are the thyroid specific therapy. So now we will discuss how we will continue the maintenance therapy. So how after that storm resolves, how we will maintain the therapy. So usually the storm will resolve in 24 to 72 hours. So after that we can stop the corticosteroids, but the antithyroid medication has to be continued until the patient attains euthyroidism. So iodine therapy, there is no point in giving it beyond 14 days because this Wolff-Chaikoff effect will wane off after some. The escape from Wolff-Chaikoff effect will occur after 10 to 14 days. So we can give iodine therapy up to a maximum of 2 weeks. So this is how we will maintain the patient after a thyroid storm. And what are the emergent treatment modalities? That is, we can make the patient, even if it is the storm is not resolving, then we can go for a plasmapheresis. But the disadvantage is that it needs to be done multiple times, because after a single episode of plasmapheresis, only 20% of T4 and less than that of T3 is only removed from circulation. So we have to do plasmapheresis multiple times, and another treatment option is charcoal hemoperfusion can be done. So there are also newer modalities which need to be discussed, like rituximab, anti-CD20 monoclonal antibody which is being studied, which helps in depletion of B lymphocytes in circulation and help in early resolution of a thyroid storm, and it is under trials. So this is how we manage a thyroid storm. Thank you for listening. Thank you.